Dragons are some of the most legendary creatures in all of fantasy, and are surprisingly quite underused in D&D 5e given the fact they're in the title. And I think one reason is, well, there can be a lot of pressure to make sure an encounter with a dragon is as memorable as you want it to be. So that's the goal of this encounter, to make a memorable dragon encounter by both making the potential combat interesting, and by providing enough hype and build-up beforehand. Hello, my name is Matt, and welcome to My Hidden Nerdy Side, and today we're tackling the most evil, twisted, and vile of all the dragons, the Black Dragon. We're going to take a look at its lore, info, and abilities, and then build an encounter you can steal, modify, and plop directly into your D&D games. Now, if you are well aware of the lore and mechanics behind the Black Dragon, then feel free to pop on over to the timestamp right here so you can jump straight to the encounter itself. I'll leave a clickable version in the description below. Alright, let's take a look at Black Dragons, and then build an encounter specifically around either an adult or ancient Black Dragon. To keep this video a decent length, we'll only be pulling the Black Dragon lore, info, and abilities that exist within the Monster Manual, all of which can be found on pages 86 to 89. So dragons are known for their incredible cunning, greed, and treasure hoards. And the oldest dragons are typically considered to be some of the strongest creatures alive. In the Monster Manual, dragons are split up into two types, metallic and chromatic. Metallic dragons are known for being noble, good-hearted, and wise, while chromatic dragons are known for being selfish and evil. And like I mentioned earlier, black dragons are said to be the most evil of the chromatic dragons. Being a chromatic dragon, black dragons are particularly greedy, have massive egos, live in well-guarded and dangerous lairs, and in traditional D&D lore serve the evil dragon goddess Tiamat. But one thing that sets apart black dragons from the other chromatic dragons, other than its appearance of course, is just how sadistic they are. Black dragons love watching their prey beg for their lives, and they love to toy with their targets, usually by letting them think they have a chance of living right before they finish them off for good. This is partially due to black dragons despising the weak, and they love when humanoid kingdoms fail and fall. So if you've ever wanted to roleplay the embodiment of evil, well, now's your chance. Flex your cruelty muscles and make it known the Black Dragon is not a creature your players want to mess with. They are also wise in the ways of combat and survival. They are known for spying on their rivals and other dragons, and they usually kill the weakest attackers first to dwindle the enemy's numbers and terrify those who still live. And black dragons know when they're about to lose and will choose to flee if they can. And if they can't, well, they would rather die than submit. And you know what? I can respect that. Typical servants of black dragons are lizard folk and kobolds. But black dragons can also become so evil that their malevolence alone can cause shambling mounds to spontaneously appear and slay their enemies. Now let's go over a black dragon's lair. They tend to set up camp in swamps and partially flooded ruins, so they have pools to rest in and have places for their victims to ferment. The Black Dragon's lair and the area around it is warped by its magic, causing a few regional effects. The land within 6 miles takes twice as long to travel across due to the thickly grown plants and large amount of mud. Fog will also lightly obscure the area, and water sources within 1 mile of the lair are tainted, causing enemies who drink it to be unable to keep it down. When within its lair, an adult or ancient dragon has 3 lair actions. It can cause the tides of any body of water it can see to shoot out and pull a creature within 20 feet of it. And we're going to modify and play with this lair action a lot in the upcoming encounter, so stay tuned for that. It can also cause a 20-foot radius sphere of insects to swarm around targets and nip at their flesh, and cause magical darkness to spring into existence in a 15-foot radius sphere. Now, since we're on the subject, let's dive into a Black Dragon stat block and look at their actions and abilities, which can be found on pages 87 to 88. From weakest to strongest, you got Wormlings, Young Black Dragons, Adult Black Dragons, and Ancient Black Dragons. The stronger the dragon gets, the harder it hits and the more abilities it gains. All black dragons are amphibious, immune to acid damage, and have blind sight. They can also all bite and shoot acid breath. Once you get to young black dragons, they can also make claw attacks and gain multi-attack. And once you get to adult black dragons and above, well, that's where the real fun begins. They gain 3 legendary resistances, 3 legendary actions, tail attacks, and the ability Frightful Presence. See, dragons are so terrifying that just being near them is enough to scare creatures senseless, causing them to be frightened until they make their next wisdom saving throw. So when narrating this, I love to ham this up and make it known just how scary their presence is by describing how the players are physically affected, whether it be a heavy weight pressing down on their chest, a chill running down their spine, the nauseous feeling in their stomach, or whatever else you decide. Now, normally black dragons don't have shape change or high deception, but we're going to give it to our dragon for this encounter, because we're going to use it in a very evil way, and with their cruel nature and tendencies to toy with the emotions of their prey, it makes sense they would have these skills. And finally, with their legendary actions, they can make perception checks, tail attacks, and make a wing attack, which also causes creatures to be knocked prone. Okay, so now that we've got all that out of the way, let's start crafting an encounter. This encounter/quest will be aimed at parties level 12 to 20 depending on how difficult you want to make it, and last roughly 2 to 3 sessions depending on how much you want to stretch it out. The party's motivation should always be tailored to the campaign, but for simplicity's sake, we'll just say there is something within the Black Dragon's horde your party needs. Now, there isn't anything wrong with tossing a surprise dragon at your party that pops out of nowhere, but we want the dragon in this encounter to be a solid villainous figure and have a certain level of hype built up around it so your party will really want to hunt it down. So, how can we achieve that? You know, other than just making it the main quest or tying it to someone's backstory. Well, first, have the players witness the aftermath of what it can do. Maybe have the party walk by a field of livestock filled with leftover scraps of chewed up animal. Describe the broken fences and the massive divots left in the ground by the dragon's claws. Then later have the party walk by a small village and have half the houses be completely melted down due to the dragon's acid breath. Talk about the crying villagers and have them share their horror stories of how the flying Deathbringer killed their loved ones and even captured a few to feast on later. This also allows your party to find out more about the Black Dragon. At this point, one of the villagers will tell the party about a dragon hunter who tried slaying the dragon once but failed, and if the party wants more tactical info on the dragon, they can go there. This dragon hunter will have a hut on the edge of a swamp that's filled with the minions of black dragons. For minions, we'll go with kobolds, so they can booby-trap the area and so your players can have some fun one-shotting them. But first, let's talk about this dragon hunter. He will be a grizzled human man missing an arm, and he will tell the party about 2 tricks to defeating the dragon. However, he will not go with the party to fight the dragon because without his arm, he believes he is useless. The first trick he will reveal will be hitting it with acid damage. The dragon hunter will explain that normally black dragons are immune to acid damage. However, this black dragon has found a way to evolve his own acid and make it stronger, but at the cost of becoming vulnerable to normal acid. The second trick will be telling the party about a special root that grows in a forest to the east of the swamp. If the party grinds it up, places it on some meat, and then offers it to the dragon, the root is so potent that it will cause the dragon to become poisoned and severely weakened. Now, how difficult you make getting this root depends on how mean you're feeling that day, because the root won't hurt the dragon. And in fact, it will give the dragon a buff. Because this dragon hunter is in fact the black dragon in his shape-changing form, posing as a dragon hunter in order to toy with those who dare come and face him. And knowing this, you can also imagine the tip about the acid damage is total rubbish. Let's say the root is very acidic and makes the dragon produce even more acid, making their breath attacks deal an extra 2d8 acid damage for adult dragons and 4d8 for ancient ones. Now, whether your party gets the root or not, they'll still need to trek through the swamp. You can have some traps laying around that are set up by the kobolds if you wish, but I personally only like tossing at most 2 or 3 traps at my parties since any more can start to get boring and cheesy. But that's just my personal experience. If your players love traps, then go nuts. However, one really cool sequence of traps you could have is a minefield of weaponized acid the Black Dragon gave to the kobolds. They took the acid and put it in containers that will explode on contact, and spread them around underneath thin layers of water and earth. But anyways, after trekking through the swamp, the regional effects described earlier in the video will start to emerge. Light fog, thick twisted plants and trees, tainted water, and so on. You can also decorate the area with signs of mangled corpses and signs of creatures trying to claw their way to freedom, only to horribly fail. Eventually, the party will reach an abandoned temple, which is the dragon's lair. Now, you can make this a mini dungeon if you like, but I'm going to skip ahead to the main encounter. So the dragon will know the party is coming because it spoke with them earlier, so you can have some kobolds hiding and waiting for an ambush. Now, if your party somehow avoids combat, great, give it to them. But let's say they fail or want to kill this dragon because it's really evil, has a juicy hoard, and just made them go on a pointless side quest looking for a root. The dragon's hoard room will be a massive stone basement with a layer of water just under a foot deep covering the entire floor. There will also be several broken pieces of wall where rooms probably once existed, fallen down pillars, some large thickets of bush, and stone platforms coming out of the wall. If the party offers the meat covered in ground up root, the dragon will fly out through a massive hole and eat the meat. However, the party will notice the dragon is missing one of its arms, which will most likely start to clue the party in on what's happening. And if it doesn't, well, the dragon spraying them with acid sure will, as the dragon basks in his glorious triumph of tricking the party. The kobolds hiding behind the broken walls and pillars will emerge, and the dragon's frightful presence will cause the thickets of bush to change into shambling mounds. Depending on the level and skill of your party, I'd recommend anywhere from 1 to 2 shambling mounds and 8 to 16 kobolds. You can beef up the kobolds as well for higher level parties and give them some cool weapons and contraptions to use so they aren't totally useless in combat. The last cool addition to this encounter will be a change on how its water-pulling lair action works. Instead of targeting just one creature, it would be cool if it worked kinda like a black hole, pulling all creatures it chooses 20 feet toward a point of the dragon's choice. This creates a little displacement chaos, allows the party to strategize by placing themselves behind walls and pillars to avoid being dragged, and of course, allows the dragon to line up its targets perfectly for a deadly blast of acid. So, a vile and deceitful dragon that's malevolence is continuously built upon through its actions and what the party witnesses, and some fun homebrew battle mechanics? I'd say this encounter is already pretty spicy. But how could we make it even spicier? Well, it's an all-powerful magical creature, so how about giving it some spells? Giving it Misty Step as a bonus or legendary action could be extra spicy, and allowing it to huck massive chunks of earth using some homebrew animate object style spell would be awesome. You could, of course, play with the abilities the dragon gains by eating the special root. What if the root causes a movement speed boost? What if it allowed the dragon to change the type of breath attack it has? Or maybe something even wackier. And finally, what if the family of villagers we mentioned earlier were still alive and in the dragon's lair, adding a side objective to combat? Kill the dragon while keeping the civilians alive. But of course, these are just some of the many ways you can use black dragons in your Dungeons & Dragons campaign. There are tons of different ways to take this encounter and spice it up, so please let me know what you would do in the comment section below so I could nerd out over it and smack myself on the head for not thinking of it. Also, let me know if there are any creatures you would like me to build an encounter for in my future videos. I'm going to try and put out at least one of these videos a week, so feel free to subscribe and share this video around if you liked it, and stay tuned for upcoming content. Thanks for watching and indulging my hidden nerdy side.